Welcome to Ecology Matters, a podcast from the Ecological Society of Australia, featuring ecologists from all over the country.
The biodiversity in this part of the world is just incredible.
It's not just ice and snow, it's teeming with life on the coast.
I see that and I say, okay, well, that's a great opportunity to study it more.
Looking at those sites gives you a sense of joy and hope.
Love being around. It's incredible.
It's just, it's a really awesome program, and it's just so healing, like, for our whole community.
It's the beauty of ecology is that it's so interconnected.
Yeah, it's been really exciting actually.
Every winter, spider crabs gather in huge underwater piles along Australia's southern coastline. The spectacular gatherings attract considerable attention, but scientists know very little about the species. How many spider crabs are there? Where do they go after they disperse? What signals to the crabs that it's time to come together? Listen as Dr. Elodie Camprasse from Deakin University discusses these mysterious creatures. On your Instagram page, you describe yourself as a thalassophile. What is a thalassophile?
That's someone who loves the ocean. So I started diving when I was a kid, and immediately I fell in love with the ocean. And actually after that very first dive that I did, I told my dad that I wanted to become a marine biologist, and I was quite set on that already.
What is it about the ocean and the marine environment that is so enticing to you?
I think for one, it's really calming, and I like the feeling of, being in a totally different environment where you can't use words, and so you focus on a lot of other things. And then, just all the creatures that I could see. I remember I was losing my marbles the first time I saw a sea slug, because I just thought it was so beautiful. Like I was wondering how it could even exist at all. I started wanting to know about, all the little creatures I would see, whether it be, a fish or a sea slug or a crab or different creatures.
You've worked and studied across a number of marine environments in Madagascar, the northeastern United States, and the French subantarctic territories. Do you have any highlights or favourite experiences from your time in these places?
All these experiences, were so different, and I was working on different species, had different goals. I think for scuba diving, my best experience would have had to be in the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. That was where I saw, the most diversity, I think, and a number of huge animals like whale sharks and schooling hammerhead sharks, and it was very beautiful to see a range of different creatures in this thriving environment. But for work, it's hard. I've worked in a range of sort of terrestrial and marine systems, and I guess for me, what's most exciting is probably going to be seeing things that most people don't necessarily get to see. Doesn't really matter what they are. I just feel like it's so special.
But if we're going to focus on one of your absolute passions, since you completed your PhD, you've devoted a considerable amount of time to developing the Spider Crab Watch program. Can you explain what the program is and why spider crabs are so interesting to you?
Spider crabs come in very big numbers in Port Phillip Bay and other parts of the Great Southern Reef. They can gather in big groups pretty much at all time of year. But what's really special is during winter when they come together to shed their shells. That's a process called molting. Because they are arthropods, they've got hard shells that they need to get rid of in order to grow bigger. And while they do that, they're soft, and so they tend to be vulnerable to predators. So we think that the reasons they come together in such big numbers is because they're seeking protection from each other. and that way they get protected from predators like big smooth rays looking for an easy meal, for a stuffed shell crab. And so the reason why it got so special to me is because, so as a diver, I had heard about this phenomenon for a few years, and I was really keen to go and see the crabs in winter. And then the day I finally saw them, I was in awe, and I was just mind blown. And then the next day I went back to my desk and I put my scientist cap on and I started looking at what we knew about these creatures because I had so many questions. And, this is a phenomenon that's been portrayed on BBC Blue Planet 2, Magical Land of Oz. So it's been portrayed in the media nationally and internationally. And yet we know near nothing about these creatures. And I guess the mystery attracted me to, finding out more about these creatures.
And why is the focus on recruiting citizen scientists?
Yeah, so there's two reasons. One reason is there's a lack of funding and resources for traditional science. We have to be a bit creative and, rely on other on other people. And, so spider crabs, when a big group is sort of settled, it might stay in one place for, a few weeks. But before they settle, they can sort of be on the march and be found in all sorts of places. And so having as many people as possible on the lookout to tell us, where they're seeing spider crabs and what they're seeing, it's just a great asset. Yeah, it's just there's so much mystery around them and so many things, so many questions that we have that every photo that a citizen scientist might submit might give us, new information and information we might not even have been looking for really. So by having people like divers and snorkelers logging their sightings and submitting photos when they have them, we can find out a lot more than with the limited time we have as scientists to spend in the marine environment when, an aggregation or a get-together has been detected.
And all that data that is being collected, what do you use that data for?
With spider crabs, really, we're starting from scratch. We have near no information. So we're kind of building information about their biology, about their ecology, but essentially, we're trying to find out, for example, what triggers these get-togethers in winter, for example, when they're molting. So, there's been some hypothesis about the water temperature. So the water has to drop below a certain temperature and then the crabs will start molting. Some people think, this is due to the full moon, but then again, some people will say, when the moon is full, the crabs will start aggregating, so start coming together. But other people say, the full moon actually starts them molting. We really don't know. So we're collecting even very basic information, but that, helps us understand what they're doing. And then we also want to understand their movement. So at the moment, the spider crabs that we see in Port Phillip Bay, we have no idea where they're coming from and where they're going to after their get-togethers in winter. So they could be living in the bay the whole year round, or they could be, leaving the bay, exiting the bay, and they could be coming back, on an annual basis. And we really don't know why. That would imply that there's something quite special about Port Phillip Bay, but we just don't know what it is. So I lead the citizen science part of this program, but I'm working with other colleagues at Deakin, like Daniel Leo Deakin, to do traditional science as well. So we've been doing some tagging, for example, and that's allowed us to see what the crabs are doing after they get together in winter. So at the moment, they have been detected in the bay up until February. So we're not quite sure whether they're actually leaving the bay. I think there've been some issues with equipment as well that makes it hard to give an answer to that question. But we're hoping to repeat that tagging and these surveys in the future to find out more.
Why do you think spider crabs are so unstudied, so, not very well understood?
I think this is part of a broader problem that as long as something is under the surface, it just goes unnoticed. And unfortunately, this applies to a lot of aquatic ecosystems, not just marine. But certainly during the past couple of years as I've been doing this research, I've just been really saddened to realize how little we know about marine creatures in general. I do community presentations and people have all sorts of questions, not just about spider crabs, but about a lot of different marine species. How does this species reproduce, or what do these species eat, or how long does this species live? And we just don't know. I just don't have this answer. I do a lot of research and try to answer questions of people in the community that are curious, but it's just, this information is not there. And I wonder, maybe part of it, as I said, is out of sight, out of mind, where people are perhaps less interested in marine life and perhaps aren't pushing as much to get the knowledge on these species. But also it has to be acknowledged that studying anything in the marine environment has a lot of constraints. It's very costly. There's a lot of, OH&S implications. And so, even if the willingness was there to study these creatures, it is costly and complicated. I had been trying to get funding for quite a number of years, related to the problem that it's hard to get money to study marine species. So, very grateful to have gotten funding from the Department of Energy, Environment and Climate Action to start this program and to finally, start getting some answers as to, what spider crabs get up to.
One of your other ambitions is to increase awareness and appreciation of the Great Southern Reef. Why is this? Why is the Great Southern Reef so important?
So the Great Southern Reef, which is pretty much, the whole southern part of Australia, from New South Wales all the way to Western Australia, is a very special place. This part is, the biodiversity in this part of the world is just incredible. And there are estimates of around 80% of this biodiversity that exists nowhere else in the world. And that means, of course, that if we lose it, it's gone forever. It's nowhere else in the world. But, a lot of people just don't realise what we have in our blue backyard in the southern shores of Australia and how precious that is.
Ecology Matters is a podcast by the Ecological Society of Australia, a not-for-profit organisation supporting ecologists and ecological science in Australia. We acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. To learn more about our work, follow us on social media, visit our website or sign up to our newsletter. You can find links to these in the show notes. The theme music is Glow by Scott Buckley. Lastly, thank you to all the ecologists who have taken part in this series and shared their perspectives on why ecology matters.